Hey Ayurveda Every Day with Talia. It's Talia Lutzker here for you. And we are going to talk today about how to safely use a neti pot. So I think, neti pots got a really big boost in popularity. I want to say it was in 2007 when Dr. Oz talked about the value of nasal irrigation on Oprah. And my teacher, hi Crystal, my teacher, Deanna Batdorf, she was actually working with Baraka, who makes my favorite ceramic neti pots. She was working with them at that time, and I remember like the amount of sales that came in for neti pots was like, they were so crazy for a couple weeks. They couldn't even keep up with the production. It was so intense. So what's come to my attention lately though, we're pretty sold on the effectiveness of using a neti pot. If you're not familiar and you're new to this entirely, in the Sanskrit relates back to like refers to nasal passages and clearing clearing the nasal passages, clearing your sinuses. In Ayurveda, we literally cleanse every orifice. It's like a really big thing in Ayurveda to go into the body in every possible way that you can. So when we are using the neti pot to affect nasal irrigation, um, there's a few different ways that you can approach it. So there's lots of gray areas, what I want to say. And what's come up for me, sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second. What's come up for in my attention is that people are not using their neti pot correctly. And so that's the main point of today's talk. But also how you can really prevent sinus infection long-term and get relief from allergies and colds and common flus. I'm going to talk about it all. Thank you for the little emoticons. Um, so the first thing I'm going to do, just for those of you who aren't familiar, when you use a neti pot, you put it up to your nostril, you breathe through your mouth. It's actually really easy. And then if you're in the bathroom, I'm not, but if you're in the bathroom, you tilt your head so that your forehead is facing the sink. And then you tilt the ear that's away from the neti pot towards the sink. And you breathe through your nose. The nasal rinse, which is salt and water, usually goes up one nostril and out the others, and it clears all of the space. There's so much I can say about this practice. It's kind of crazy, and even though I have notes, I can tell I'm already a little overly excited about this topic. So when you cleanse the sinuses, you are also cleansing what in yoga we consider some of the most sacred areas of the body. Like when we're babies and we're nursing, the way that we're sucking and we're getting like the nectar of the milk, we're sucking it back into the throat. You're also cleansing and clearing that part of your subtle anatomy or your sacred anatomy. And you can also be clearing brain fog. I don't know that it necessarily affects the eyes specifically, but if you had mucus buildup that was kind of up here around your upper cheeks, and it was putting pressure on your eyes, causing headaches, or even it could cause some kind of vision issue. Even things like that can be cleared from just clearing out all of the gunk, whether it's mucus that's already ready to move and you feel it because you're congested, or it can be really dry. Like one of the places where I have found neti pot to be the most powerful is in the desert, because you get so dry, and if there's wind too, you're breathing in all these particles of dust, and as that dust starts to collect, your body tries to protect you by creating mucus. But it isn't always like runny nose. It isn't always this obvious congestion. It can just be like, ugh, I can't really breathe. I can feel like weirdness in my lungs. Maybe, your nose is so dry, it's painful. So I have found that Neti pot can really, really help. Oh, and Jet is here. Happy birthday to Brigitte, one of my favorite humans on the planet. And Crystal is saying that she woke up Monday morning with a headache, did a Neti rinse with her Neti pot and a nausea oil that I made, which I'm going to talk about. And then many hours later, she realized that her headache had gone away. And normally it would have been really difficult for her to get rid of the headache. So yay, we have social proof right here on the Facebook Live. And by the way, if you're watching this after the fact on YouTube, hello, welcome. If you want to be here live where you can comment and ask questions, you just get to join my Facebook group, Ayurveda Every Day with Talia. It's totally free and it's super fun. Okay, so let's start with how to make sure you're using your Neti pot in the safest way possible. So the reports that have come in lately are that people are using tap water, and if there are parasites or amoebas in the water, that can get trapped in your sinus passages, because just because you know it's nasal irrigation, it doesn't mean that all the water that goes in immediately comes out. So sometimes that water can kind of be still and be working on whatever's up there. It's not a lot of water, but a little bit. But if there's parasites or amoebas, they're staying up there too. And I'd already heard about this, but then I was really researching it last night. And I saw that just 3 days ago, a woman in Seattle died because she had this parasite in her brain that they traced back to her using tap water in her Neti pot. So, when you're being really traditional about Neti pot use, you'll see that it's always recommended to use distilled water. And distilled water means it's been purified of everything. Like there's no minerals in it. It's really just distilled into just pure H2O. So that's ideal. You can buy them at the grocery store, like get a gallon one and just keep it in your bathroom. But I personally really like for my Neti pot water to be a little bit warm. So one thing that I do, and I have found it to be really effective, but it depends on your lifestyle and what you've got going on, is I boil water every morning for my morning drink, and just part of my ritual to kind of begin my day. Is I want hot water on the stove. I might use it to warm up my Abhyanga, my body massage oil, if that's what I'm doing in the morning. So whatever, I boil water. And then I pour that boiled water into my Neti pot. And here I am again with, how do you show the thing to the camera? So I pour it in here. And of course, it's too hot to use when I first pour the water in. But I have figured out that if I set a timer for 20 minutes, when I go back to my Neti pot, it's the perfect temperature for Neti pot. And I'm saying this on December 13th, 2018. It's pretty cold in Santa Cruz, certainly not freezing, but it might take a little bit longer for the water to get to perfect temperature if it's not quite so cold outside and in my little studio. So it might take 25 minutes. But I set my alarm, and then I go in, and while the water is still warm, I add my salt. And for a standard size Neti pot like this one, and I really do love the ceramic because, especially when you're at home, because, this will be so clean. You're not going to get any plastic pollutants in your body from hot water meeting your ceramic Neti pot. It won't react with the salt in any negative way. It's all going to be clean, clean, clean. So I use half a teaspoon of really good quality salt. Now this is kind of my point number 2. Point number 1 is you've got to make sure that your water is either distilled or has been boiled, because you want water that is free and clear of any potential amoebas or parasites. So that's number 1. Number 2, use really good quality salt. Now, I teach about salt constantly. I'm such a stickler for really good, high quality, mineral rich salt in your food. in your drinks if you put salt into water to get electrolyte balance, and in the neti pot. The only place where when I've got refined sea salt, like the $1.99 canister that comes from Trader Joe's or a major grocery store, it's like usually has a red and blue label on it. I don't use that salt internally in any way, and this is an internal practice. I always use a high quality mineral rich salt like Celtic sea salt, Atlantic gray salt. If you have Himalayan pink salt, use it, but I don't recommend buying it because it's endangered. And let's let everybody who lives in the Himalayas have access to their salt. But that really good quality salt is going to work on your mucous membranes. It's going to break down any mucus that is ready to be broken down. So this is where a neti pot can help, even if your nose is dry and your sinus passages feel dry, because the salt and the water will work on that dried mucus and help it to loosen up and get on the move. And of course, if you're really congested and the mucus is right there, the water and the salt is going to move it. Now, I have had clients whose mucus is so thick that when they go to do their neti pot and they're here, they're just waiting and waiting and waiting, and the water won't come. It won't actually go through because the mucus is so thick and dense, like so Kauphic, we would say in Ayurveda. In that case, what you need to do, and this is really works, really works, is boil a pot of water. It doesn't have to be a giant pot of water, but I like to use a soup stock pot for this. Boil a pot of water with some fresh ginger root in it. If you have it, some mint, some rosemary, any kind of invigorating herb like mint or rosemary can go into the water. And as it's boiling, stand over it with a towel over your head and steam. Let that warm, hot steam start to break down and liquefy the mucus that is so stuck and dense that you can't get through it. I don't have it with me right now, but last week in the live training last week, I talked about my favorite face products. And by the way, time out. Anybody who tried to purchase anything off of my website shop last week as a result of watching that video, I apologize. We have been, my team and I have just been in this crazy Mercury retrograde breakdown around technology, and I just cannot get it fixed yet. I mean, we're getting it fixed now, but my shop was down. So if ever you want to buy anything from my shop and you can't use the shop, which should not be an issue moving forward, just send me a private message or send me an email and I will take care of you always. But I know some of you tried to buy stuff and couldn't. So anyway, being in that steam and getting everything loosened, you could use a gua sha, which is one of the tools I showed last week. You can really open up the channels here. You can open up like the sinuses up here. It's amazing how much you can get released. Same with the little mini fascia blaster I showed last week. Anything, any little claws or any little sharp edge that you really open up these tissues. I'm showing you this so that you can do this, right? You can really like massage this. And if you've got congestion, this will be a little bit painful at first, but you're loosening it up so that you can use the neti pot to get it all out. Anyway, this is turning into a long video. Okay, so you need really good water. The water needs to have no parasites in it. The water needs to be free of amoebas so they don't attack your brain. You use really good quality salt. And what I like to do is I go halfway, I kind of have a sense of it now because I've done it so many times. I'll go about halfway, meaning I'll use about half the water in the pot. Then I go to the other side because you'll really catch, like sometimes you'll be like, oh, something loosened that didn't at all on the other side. And I'll do it on the other side. And then I'll leave just like a tablespoon of the warm salt water in the neti pot. And I will take a sip, gargle with it, and really get whatever mucus is in my mouth is also going to get loosened and broken up by the salt water in my mouth, and then I spit it out. And I'm telling you, when you've got some mucus to move, this practice will move it. So yeah, sometimes I'll just be like, oh wow, like now I need to stand here and spit for 5 minutes because so much mucus that I did not experience as being at the surface gets unlocked through this practice. Then you get it out and then it's gone. So, in terms of preventing sinus infections long term and quickly getting over cold and flu, when you use your neti pot as needed, meaning you definitely use it when you're congested and the congestion is obvious, but you also use it if you get like a little cough and it doesn't even seem related to your sinuses. But of course it is, because hello, it's all connected. Even if you have a really dry nose, even if you're getting headaches, like think about the symptoms that are kind of upper respiratory tract, anything around the head, the ears, nose, and throat. Go to your neti pot practice, just see what happens, see what gets cleared, because it might really surprise you of what can go out. Oh my gosh, Wendy says, as soon as I said Mercury retrograde, the video froze. Mercury and I are actually amazing friends. So I think he's just like pulling a bunch of pranks on me these days. And my job is really just to see the humor in it and laugh. Okay. So another thing though, to prevent sinus infections long-term and to quickly move cold and flu symptoms is you can add one more thing to this amazing concoction that I've already shared with you. And that is nausea oil. And here's a little, let me get to the camera. Oh, can you see that one? This is one that I make, nausea oil for sinus relief. I learned how to make that at Ayurveda school, and I teach my students how to make it. Where's this one? Here's one from Shaktiveda. She's so cool, this woman who does Shaktiveda, Ayurveda, her products. It's Dr. Mary. Some of her blends are specific for if you have allergies or even a thyroid imbalance. She has a blend for when you're in perimenopause, when you're having PMS, because she infuses the nausea oil, which nausea is another word for, pertaining to the sinus passages and nasal irrigation. But it's very ears, nose, and throat. I'll tell you about it in just a second. So she does have specific blends, like the pink one is allergy relief. But then she also does these really cool kind of chakra balancing, chakra clearing blends that are more emotional, spiritual, psychic in nature. And I just think that's the coolest thing ever, because like I said, you are definitely affecting third eye when you do neti pot and when you do use nausea oil. So I love that she's got these different blends. Like my favorite ones are called Divine Intervention Nausea, which I've been using lately, and Neuro Pattern Release, just to name a couple, because she's actually got a line of maybe 10 or 12. And then, there's one like the one that I make, which is much more, I would say, medicinal, in that it's very, I soak garlic in olive oil for 2 or 3 months. Then I strain out the garlic. I add sesame oil and ghee, ginger, and that garlic is really there. So garlic and ginger are natural antimicrobials, antibacterials. They can, just really help to clear any gunk that's kind of hiding in the shadows, like pathogens or viruses, what have you. But also they'll kill parasites and amoebas, and they'll definitely prevent any new bacterial infections from forming. So when I do my neti pot, and I've been doing this for years, I'm going to tell you about my dosha in a second too. But when I do my neti pot, I just open up my Nasya oil, whichever one I choose to use given the day, because I'm going to use mine, this antibacterial one, when I'm really cold, really congested, I feel like I'm getting sick, I need extra protection. But I'm just going to fill up a dropper full here and add it to my neti pot water. But if I was more having an emotional day, or I'm really needing support from Mercury retrograde craziness, you see, it's hard to see it with the light, divine intervention Nasya oil, I'll use one like this. So just one dropper full, maybe two if your sinuses are super duper dry. And then it's the exact same thing. I use half the water, I still gargle, because Nasya oil is ears, nose, and throat. I know I'm really not allowed to use the word medicine, but this is my show and my video, and it's natural medicine. So anyway, it really is effective. And then when you're done with your neti pot, you have this kind of coating of just this really light coating of lubricating, herbally active oil that continues to work on your sinus passages for the rest of the day. And I think that's where I love you too, Carrie. I referred someone to you recently, Carrie, in San Francisco. I mean, they're not in San Francisco, but you are. And I think that's what Crystal was saying, you know, like her headache went away and she didn't even totally notice, but I bet that the Nasya oil in her neti pot played a big part in that, because it just kept working on draining whatever needs to be drained, so that pressure and congestion is released from the head. So I share my dosha all the time because I think it's really useful for us in this community, as we get to know each other, to know what each other's dosha is. And your dosha is your core constitution. So I'm talking about really like who you are at your core, not your present imbalance so much. At my core, I am Vata Kapha, in that order. So I tend to get super duper dry, and yet I can also have congestion. And sometimes they're really like pretty linked, where there may be dryness on the surface, and then I basically, I don't attack it, that's not the right word, but I attack it with my neti pot practice. And like I said, I might unlock something and then be like, oh my gosh, like my ears might drain or even hurt for a few seconds. Sometimes I'll really get like a burning sensation way back in the back of my throat. Like it's a place I can't even describe exactly where it is. And it'll be like, oh, that hurts. But then it'll just be for a few seconds, and then all this mucus drains. So, you know, this is where Ayurveda, you know, you either love it or you leave it, because it's really only for people who are willing to go through those few seconds of discomfort to get the health and wellness benefits that come as a result on the other side. But I'm telling you, it has been so, I want to say miraculous, because it's just so incredible what this one cheap, simple, easy, less than 2-minute practice can do for your respiratory tract, your ears, nose, and throat health, and just the way that you feel and experience yourself in life, because you don't have this congestion getting you down. So Amy is asking, how many may I buy 2 Nasya oils from you? So you know what, Amy, private message me, because I'm going to find out if you're wanting any of these cool Shakti Veda ones, or if you're wanting mine. My Nasya oils are on my Talia's Kitchen shop. I believe that the link is working. I pray to God that it's working. But these other oils I only sell in my studio. So if you want to get a few, one of each, private message me and I'll totally take care of you. It's so easy. So again, if there's ever a time where you can't make a purchase on my shop because something is wonky and not working, just send me a private message and I'll take care of you. So yeah, so I think I covered everything that was on my agenda. Oh no, there is one more thing. Okay, remember the example of the person who is here and they're just waiting and nothing is happening because their congestion is so thick, and I recommended to do the steam to loosen it up. Now, right after you do the steam, you try for the neti pot again. If it still doesn't work, you go back to the steam and you kind of keep going. You can also do some pounding on the chest. You can do gua sha fascia blaster on the face, but you can also just take where is it in the camera? There, I guess. The Nasi oil that I make, or one that is like it, that's very antibacterial, antimicrobial, and heating. Garlic and ginger are heating. But you can put this in a little, like just a little cup of hot water just for a minute. It gets warm. Shake it up. I'm not going to actually do it because it'll be kind of messy. Maybe I will. I'll do it. Take some of this out. You really don't need very much, but you just go like this. I'll show you. So you kind of, like you're doing Coke, which I've never done. No, that's not true. I have, but I hated it, so I only did it like twice. And then you swallow it. You're really trying to swallow it. So when you do straight up Nasi oil, you do have to be able at least to breathe enough that you can swallow it, and you'll feel it going into the back of your throat. Like this, I just did my blend, the spicy blend. The garlic ginger blend is really more true. And I can feel it. I can feel it kind of, it went up and now it's going down. So that is really, really effective. And then you can, again, then you can do the neti pot. If you're super congested, it's fine to do neti pot a couple times a day until you clear whatever you need, but you don't need to do it all the time. You can really use neti pot as needed. But you know, if you wake up and you're really congested regularly when you wake up, or you're a surfer like my ex-boyfriend, lots of surfers that I know, you know, they'd be like, oh, I have water in my ear and I can't get it out. I'm like, we are going for the Nasi oil. So same thing, you warm it up, you put it in the ear that's clogged or congested, not like that. You know, you pour some in and then you really just massage. You massage all around the eustachian tube here to help it drain. And that too is ears, nose, throat. They really work in conjunction with each other. They're really interconnected. And when you do your neti pot practice and your Nasi oil practice with regularity, you experience it. And Ayurveda is an experiential science, just like yoga. We can talk about it all day long, but until you're actually practicing it and using it, you know, that's when you really get to feel the magic of how powerful it is and how deeply it works on your health, your well-being, and your joy. So thanks so much for being here with me, everybody. Heidi's here. I was totally thinking about you this morning. And Vicky, Monica, can I do the same thing with a squeeze bottle? You can, but I am not a fan of the squeeze bottle. It might just be a personal, like, I can't stand balloons that pop. Like, it's so scary for me. And I feel the same way about squeezing, like using force to put water up my nose. But you could. And the person who has that crazy, thick, gunky congestion, they might need that pressure. But I really love the subtlety of the neti pot, and that, you know, it's just the weight of the water. And if you add some Nasi oil to it, the weight of the oil that pushes the water through. I just really prefer that. And I find it to be much more gentle and much more user-friendly than the squeeze bottle. Also, if you're using a squeeze bottle, squeeze bottle. And I don't know, my video went out for a second. I want you to be able to fill the squeeze bottle with, you know, safe water, good salt, what I talked about in the beginning of this live today. So, you know, because you can buy the saline solutions at any drugstore, and I would not use those. I would never, ever use those. Same as I won't use those kinds of enemas. It matters what you put into your orifices. So be in control of what it is. So that is it for today. And I hope you got a lot out of the talk today. As usual, I will post a few things in the comments linking to some of the things that I spoke about, including I have a really great blog that I did about neti pot and just ways you can protect yourself from cold and flu. I'll post a link to that. I'll post a link to my shop where I have my nasi oils, and I'll post a link to Dr. Mary's website where she's got the Shakti Veda nasi oils. So thanks. Bye.